Awesome, thank you, praise team. Go ahead and sit down while they clear up. Does anyone happen to see a black little remote? Like the side, there it is. Thank you, Alice. Oh my Lord, I was going nuts. Alice in Wonderland, I owe you my life. Ha! Well, happy end of third quarter. Will you do me a favor? Share what you've been most proud of yourself for in this quarter. What are you most proud of yourself for in this quarter?
그냥 근데 프레이즈 할 때는 돌아다니면서 she photographer he was like I was like, oh, should I just say like in the front row just he's like, I don't know, you're I was like, I should 나는 여기서 찍고 여기서 찍고
All right, good to see you guys. I talked to a few students and one of them was like, I haven't slept at all in class this quarter. So I'm really proud, really proud. Hopefully all the teachers can say that too. Yeah? Yeah? Awesome. Sweet. So in July of 2016, on the 27th day of July, I did something that I never thought I would ever do. And I told myself I would never do this, but I did. Can anyone guess what that might have been? July 27th, 2016. I signed up for Instagram. And I made my first ever Instagram post. Now, a few things about this. I come from a generation of older technology. So you guys were kind of raised in the social media world. People of my generation, we moved into it like foreigners from a different country. And so it takes us a little bit longer to figure out how to do it and why to do it and all these types of things. And so for me, things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they didn't come naturally. I kind of had to choose, do I want to be part of this world or not? And so I was so nervous the first time I put something on Instagram. Because like, now people are going to see what I think is cool, and what if they don't think it's cool? What if they think it's absolutely lame? And I've known what Instagram was before, you know, people posting photos of their cars or hanging out with their friends, but more than anything, food. Like Instagram was seriously food. The first thing I posted had nothing to do with food, it was this. A metal box. So one of my hobbies is building like electronics. And so I made this little guitar effect pedal for those of you that play guitar. You know when you step on those boxes, they make noise. I made one of those over summer, and I was so proud of it that I decided to put it on Instagram. And this was the first post I ever did. And like, because I had no Instagram followers, I got like one heart. It was like my like grandma or mom or something like that, right? They were on Instagram before me. How sad is that? And so I began to think, okay, well, what is the kind of stuff to post? And so this is kind of like I'm going to show you guys my Instagram posting history, and that's kind of embarrassing, because it's one thing for people to see what you post on their phones, right? Like, oh, someone's going to look at this on their phone. But when you put it on the big screen behind you, it's a little bit unnerving, so I need your help. Before I show you some of the stuff I put on Instagram, will you do me a favor? And maybe share with your neighbor, what are the most common types of photos that you post? When you post, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, even Snapchat, what are the most common things you put up?
나 여기 앉아도 돼? Thank you. 찍으려고.
아니 그게 아니라 맞추시려는 거 아니야?
Nobody's watching. Nobody's watching. 아무도 안 본다고.
아 이거 라이브예요? It's not video?
It's live. It's live.
I mean, are you transforming into video?
So I went around the auditorium and I asked a few people, just gonna do this. If this represents you, just do a quick hand up. It doesn't need to be anything flashy, just really quick. Someone said they post pictures of their friends. Anybody else? Cool, cool. Someone says pictures of myself. Anybody else? I found one that was really interesting. This student said, I only post photos of my back. It's like, awesome, all right? Like, that's just like this student's kind of style of posting on Instagram. I post photos of my back. Now, here's the stuff that I post. Now, here's the thing. I'm putting my life out there for critique because I would argue this, that whatever you choose to post on social media says what you want other people to see about you. Right? Like, that's simply what you're doing. You're posting this, whether it's a word, a phrase, a link, a photo, a video, right? Whether it's something funny or something serious, you're saying to the world, this is something about me that I want you to know. And so here's kind of like the main stuff that I've posted on Instagram for myself. All right, so you got the guitar pedal thing. I like to post pictures of myself and my friends. So this is a picture of myself and Mr. Picken at the first Ascend Leadership Summit. Some of you were there. And my wife wrote him a note, and the note said, thank you for loving my husband as much as I do. And so then he's holding the note up, and we took a photo together. I like to post stuff when I'm with students. So this is the me and Marvase team, us at the airport before we headed for our trip. By the way, you guys went on Vase. It's tomorrow. I'm super excited for you guys. We had a great team, and I know that all the teams this year are also awesome. I like to post stuff that happens at GSIS. This was the Christmas chapel from last year where we decorated teachers. You can see Mr. Francois, my wife, Mr. Smith, where we wrapped them up like presents. I probably post too many photos and videos of this, of lifting weight. Now there's a reason for that. It's really not the showboating like that it might seem. It's really not. My best friends in America all do powerlifting and CrossFit. And so it's one way for us to stay in touch. And they usually just make fun of me, right? Because they're a lot stronger than I am. So it's just something that I like to put up. And yeah, it's fun. And I'd say the last thing, photos of my wife.
Aww.
Right? And this is myself, Mrs. Lozano, and two seniors. They had just graduated, and they had told us they never learned how to cook breakfast. And so we had them over at our house, and we taught them how to make breakfast that day. And it was kind of a fun thing. So if you want to learn how to make breakfast, let me know. We might have you over to the house. Just a couple of you, not a lot of you. I do Mexican food. Mrs. Lozano does everything else really, really well. Now I have to ask myself, why do I want anybody to know this about me? Like, what inside of me says, I have to show this to the world? Because there's a lot of my life that you guys don't see. Doing laundry. Hashtag adulting, right? There's a lot of stuff that you guys don't see. Shopping for groceries. Brushing my teeth in the morning. Getting into my office at GSIS and dealing with all sorts of emails that I got to respond to and send out. There's a lot of mundane stuff that is not a highlight. It's just life, and it's a life that God's given me. And I wonder, why do I feel so compelled to share these things and not everything? And I ask myself, and I tell myself this phrase, I guess, more and more correctly, that I don't want to be a hypocrite. And what I mean by that is my online life, my Instagram life, my Twitter life, I want that to be the real me. And for me, I can at least say this. The stuff that I post on Instagram and Twitter, I would be doing anyways, right? The hobbies, the hanging out with students, the activities, I would be doing those anyways, even social media didn't exist. So whether or not it's stuff that I should be putting online, at least I can say it's stuff that I'm really doing and I would do anyhow, because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I want to be authentic. The person that you see there, I want to be the person that you see here, for better or for worse. I at least want to be true to the person that God's made me. And I think Jesus wanted that of his disciples as well. I think when Jesus talked in the Sermon on the Mount on what it looks like to live a reign life according to God's plan, he was very clear because he addressed this multiple times. He did not want his disciples to be hypocrites. He wanted them to be authentic. And when you look at the Sermon on the Mount, we've traveled pretty far. By the way, guys, this is a sixth week on the Sermon on the Mount. And we talked about things like blessings, that God desires us to be meek because the meek inherit the earth. God desires us to be pure in heart because the pure in heart see God in all situations. We saw the call to righteousness, to be the light of the world. We saw that God warns us to not let anger go unchecked because there's danger and all these incredible teachings. Well, now we're on the back half of the Sermon on the Mount. And in this section, in chapter 6, Jesus deals with doing good deeds. Doing things that are right to do. And in Jewish culture, there were 3 primary good deeds that any good Jew was expected to do. Give to the poor, pray, and fast. Now notice when we read, Jesus does not say, if you do these 3 things. No. He assumes that if you're going to be a follower of him, you will do religious activity. You will do good things. He says when you do these things. For example, I have Mr. Birkin and Mr. Scott in the back. When they work with their basketball team, they probably do not say, and Mr. Ewan right here, they probably do not say, if you dribble. Because if you play basketball, it's assumed that you will dribble. They say when you dribble. Mr. Birkin's looking at the 4-foot shuffle, right? When, not if. And so Jesus teaches us about religious activity in Matthew chapter 6. I want to read with you guys. He says, be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward in heaven or from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and the streets to be honored by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be done in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. About 3 separate occasions on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus uses the word hypocrite. Now, sometimes when we think of a hypocrite, we might think of someone that says they do something, but they really don't, kind of like faking about their life. But Jesus deals with a very specific type of hypocrisy. Fake goodness. Something that looks good on the outside, but on the inside it's really empty. And the only analogy I could think of is cake in Korea. You guys know what I'm talking about. You go to Paris Baguette, and you see these beautiful cakes. I mean, they are just absolutely gorgeous. I remember when I first moved to Korea, someone told me, Eddie, do not be fooled. That cake has no taste. And I'm like, oh, come on, man, it looks incredible. All these bakeries, these gorgeous chocolate cakes, or this incredible frosting. Eddie, it's a waste of your money. It's 20 bucks you're never gonna get. It's gonna break your heart. Oh, come on, man, this cake's amazing. So I remember buying my first Korean cake, and it was beautiful. It was angelic, right? Like you open up out of the box, and I'm looking at this cake, and my mouth is watering. I start cutting into the cake. And my stomach starts grumbling, oh man, this cake just looks good, it smells good. I start giving the pieces away to different people, but I say the biggest one for me because this cake surely is going to be amazing. It looks so good on the outside. And I take a bite, and it's like I'm chewing on air. There is no flavor whatsoever. Does anybody know what I'm talking about with these cakes, right? They look really good on the outside, but there's just no taste. Jesus says this, essentially, that when we do good activities with wrong motives, we're like that kind of a cake. You look great on the outside, man. Your frosting is incredible. But if someone were to go a little bit deeper to your heart, it might be kind of empty. So Jesus' basic teaching here is this, really simple. Do good things. And do them sincerely. For the believer, that means that whatever we do it specifically to bring honor to God and bless those around us. That's it. And for those of you that don't consider yourselves to be believers here, which is absolutely fine, I think you could still agree that it's better when people do good things for the right reasons. I mean, take a look at what Jesus teaches on the Sermon on the Mount here. It's better to forgive than pursue backlash against people. It's better to be merciful than not. It's better to be meek than prideful, right? It's better to have a pure heart than be driven by lust. All these incredible things that Jesus teaches, if we just apply them in society, our world would be such a better place. So Jesus essentially says here, with religious actions, with doing good, do good things. Don't stop doing good things, but do them for the right reasons. And I love the fact that he's not saying we can get out of them, but we need to do them rightly. So Jesus begins to talk about rewards, and he kind of categorizes it into 2 categories. He says, look, there's 2 types of rewards for doing good things. You have one side of the room where people do good things to get attention. And you have another side of the room where people do good things simply because it's the right thing to do. Now, I want to talk a little bit about VASE here. You know, in my opinion, VASE is great. I love VASE, but I wonder if VASE wasn't the only program that offered service and CAS hours, how many would actually go? That's a question that I ask myself. You know, because other schools, they do things like Week Without Walls and Discovery Week. And I'm all for that because for me, rather than sending 90 people with 40 of them doing it for pure motives, I'm okay with sending 30 people that are doing it with a sincere heart. Now, I'm not saying anybody here is not doing it sincerely. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying I think sometimes when we go on these types of trips, for those of you that are going, maybe the extra benefits outweigh the motivation of just loving people for the right reasons. You know, last year, speaking of VASE, the proudest moment I had as a trip leader. Now, those of you that were on my Myanmar team, you guys are amazing and I love you, and you guys did such a great job, and those of you last year in the Philippines and all the teams, really proud of you guys. But there was one moment, more than any, that made me so proud on a VASE trip. And here's how it went down. It was lunchtime, and everybody had just finished eating. And so when we're done eating, the instructions are very clear. Clean off your plate, take them over to the sink where the orphans will wash them. Now the orphans at SMOC where we work, they have daily chores. It's part of their expectation. So our kids, they clean up their plates, they take their plates to go get washed, and then they'll go outside and they'll hang out with the orphans. They're doing the right thing. We're there to serve, we're there to play, we're there to love. But one student, instead of just leaving the dishes there, which was the right thing to do, this student stayed behind. Stayed behind and spent 15 minutes just washing dishes. Now this student didn't know I saw. And this student never came to me and said, hey, Mr. Lowe, you know what? While everybody was playing, I did dishes. Hashtag service. You know what I mean? Like it was nothing like that. This kid just did it. And at night when we talked about all the great stuff that happened on that trip, you know, I got to play with this kid, I sung a song, you know, it was so cute, it was so much fun, which is great. This student did not say, and I did dishes. It was the secret act of love that was done because simply it was the right thing to do. And I remember watching that and just feeling so proud that the idea that I can serve and I can do something good without having to tell other people had sunk into this student's heart. And I'm not going to spoil that by saying the person's name, because it was something special. It was something to do with a pure motive. And I'm sure many of you guys do that, and if you don't, I'd encourage you to start. So Jesus says that those of us that do something to gain attention, we've already received our reward. Your reward is simply other people see it, and they say, oh, wow, that was really cool of that person. They get the recognition of human beings. Now, I want to add, if you're doing good things and people recognize you, that's not a bad thing. Jesus is not saying that everything you do, you should be secretive about. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is don't do things to get recognition. If you happen to get recognition, fine. And on the other side, those that do things sincerely, Jesus says, your Father will reward you. Now, I want to talk about the nature of these rewards. In Jewish culture, let's say, for example, I was selling a house. And when the house has been sold, I'm going to sell it to, let's see, somebody there. I'll sell it to Matthias. So Matthias comes and buys my house. I need to give him a receipt. And that receipt would actually say reward, not reward, but the other word, received in full. It was actually a contractual term that would show Matthias that he's not going to get anything else. That once Matthias has gotten the money, or I've gotten the money from Matthias, I'm not getting anything else from him. That's it. So Jesus is saying, when we do things for attention, that's all you're going to get out of it. But on the flip side, when you're doing things sincerely for the right motives, you unlock the blessing of God. And there's no greater blesser than God himself. I remember being a kid going trick-or-treating. And we kind of grew up in kind of the poor neighborhood. And so where we would live, all the people gave the really, really cheap candy. Like, you know, like the knockoff imitation candy that does not taste really good? It's all stale and hard. You buy it by the dollar store, right? That kind of candy. That's the candy that was where I was raised. But then if we walked, which was kind of far away, if we walked a couple miles down the road, we went to the rich neighborhood. And in the rich neighborhood, you got full-size Kit Kats. And you got full-size Snickers, and you got full-size Butterfingers, and all the good, expensive candy. And so we kind of had to delay instant gratification to get the good candy. And I wonder how many of us, if we do things for selfish motives, we're cheating out our bag. We're preventing God from blessing us because we're so concerned about what other people think. So maybe we need to ask ourselves, what does it look like to do good things for the right reasons? And there's a few questions that I think we could ask ourselves. The first one is this: what is your main motivation for doing this? So for those of you that serve in a club, for example, I think there's an announcement from the Green Club. I'll go ahead and give that now. It's an hour of no electricity. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's kind of modified because everyone's going to be in the gym. So
Okay.
it's more going to be just awareness that tomorrow is Earth Hour, and just be, show your support for the earth that you live in.
Very good. Be good stewards of the earth that we're in, right? Okay. So, whether it's Green Club, whether it's some other service activity like NHS, or getting involved in school activities, ask yourself, what is my motivation? Like, why am I doing this? Now, sometimes finding out our motivation for something can be kind of hard because we like to deceive ourselves. Right? We like to kind of tell ourselves things that aren't always true about us, for better or for worse. When we look in the mirror, the person that we want to see sometimes isn't the same person that really is standing in front of that mirror. And so this is where we need God's help. In fact, David understood this. David, the Bible says, was a man after God's own heart, but David still did not trust himself perfectly. So he writes this to God, and I find it so powerful. He says, God, I want you to investigate my life. Find out everything about me. Cross-examine and test me. Get a clear picture of what I'm about. In other words, God, I can lie to myself, but you will not lie to me. Would you please reveal what my heart is, what I'm really like on the inside? Because I know that when you do that by your Spirit, I'll know who I really am. So going back to this question, what is our motivation for serving? I would encourage you guys to spend some time in prayer. God, why am I really doing this? Maybe it's a staff member here that's putting in extra hours for work. God, why am I really doing this? Like, is this truly for you and to bless others? And the second question is, would I still do it even if nobody knew about it? Would I still live this life that you've called me to live if I didn't post about it? If nobody recognized me, if nobody put a shout out on an email saying, this person did an incredible job and we need to thank them for the great thing. Now, we don't want to be a community that doesn't thank people. That's not what I'm saying. But we shouldn't be a community that only does stuff for applause. If the applause comes, fine. Great. Awesome. But if it doesn't, you have an audience up there, an audience of one. And his applause means more than anything else. It really, really does. Because one day, we're all going to stand before him. And nobody else's opinions is going to matter on that day. What my wife thinks about me, what my boss thinks about me, what my colleagues, what my students, as much as those are important now, when I stand before my Maker, the one who formed me in his own image, and has given me the life that I live, when I stand before him, no one else's opinions is going to matter on that day except his. And I get to be with him for eternity, which is such an incredible thing. So ask yourself the second question: would I still do this good thing, even if nobody noticed? So we're checking our motives. I got one final statement to make here, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Rader. So our phase teams, they're going to be leaving tomorrow. And you guys have a commission. You are representatives of this school. You're representatives of South Korea. But more importantly, especially for you believers, you're representatives of Christ. And maybe you don't get a chance to preach the gospel in word. Maybe that's not the trip that you're on, because we have different types of trips. But your character, your behavior, the way you treat your neighbor, the way you speak about the culture that you're visiting, instead of saying, ooh, that's gross, maybe saying, oh, this is different. All those things are reflections of Christ. So while you're there doing something good, I want you guys to post stuff on social media. I want you to celebrate. I want you to be so excited about what you did. But as you do that, just make sure you're doing a little bit of a gut check here. What is my motivation? Am I really doing this even if nobody else knew about it? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day. Lord, I ask God that we would be people that check our motives, that we would not do things selfishly, or to get promotion in life, but we do them as unto you with sincerity. Thank you, God, for your goodness. In your name we pray. Amen. Vase, so here's how we're going to release you guys in a little bit in a different kind of fashion. Dr. Rader has an announcement. We're going to release everybody except for the 9th and 10th graders and the Vase students, which probably is about a third of you guys going to get released. So those of you that are not Vase or 9th and 10th, you are released now.
Okay, hold on just a second. Hold on. You guys, hold on just a second. Just sit down real quick. I just wanted to clarify a couple of